Hey everybody, Riot Mort here with the patch 13.18 rundown, the launch of TFT Runeterra Reforged Horizonbound. And so here we are, our final mid-set. This will be Runeterra Reforged mid-set, where there'll be a bunch of new stuff, a bunch of cool things to try out, and yeah, a lot to go over. So it's a big patch, yeah. Now, if you've been playing a bunch of PvE, a lot of this is going to be repeated ground. This probably isn't the video for you, so maybe fast forward or go check out my Twitter patch notes or something like that, because this is going to go over all the changes for the people who didn't get a ton of time to play on PvE. So if you didn't get a ton of time to play on PvE, this is for you, and we're going to go over all the changes. Now, the positive for those of you that did is this will have all the updated numbers, including the stuff that's coming last minute. So if you see some updated numbers in here, that's why. But yeah, this will be what launches. So let's dive into it, because there's a lot to go over. First off, we have to say goodbye to things to make room for new stuff in the mid-set. So Maokai, Tristana, Viego, Kled, Teemo, Zed, Akshan, Garen, Kalista, Lissandra, Gwen, Lux, Urgot, Yasuo, Zeri, and Senna are all leaving on the champion side. And there will be no more Shadow Isles, no more Yordle, and no more Deadeye. Personally, I'm sad to lose things like Gwen. Pretty fun. But, you know, you got to make room. So, goodbye, friends. You'll be missed. All right. With that, that means some of the things that are in the set are staying, but changing a bit. For example, Jhin is now becoming an Ionia Vanquisher. And we'll talk about what Vanquisher is a little later. Same with Ashe, who is becoming a Vanquisher. We're also taking the time to make a bunch of changes to various stats to try to make champions a little more viable, or maybe take advantage of different things they've got. So for example, Poppy lost Yordle, so now Poppy gets to be a lot tankier, higher HP, higher AD, better shield duration, stuff like that. So you can try out Poppy. Swain got a bit of a rework, where now he's no longer mono-locked. He casts multiple times, each time gaining more and more health, so he's great with items like Spirit Visage or Redemption that can heal based off % health. Darius is now a Vanquisher, and Rek'Sai is now a Slayer, so they've got a third trait. That third trait means they have to lose some of their base stats, things like that. Aphelios is now a Gunner, which changes his stat line pretty heavily. We also tried to make him less reliant on Ginsu's. So you'll notice the Chakram AD, which was something he really liked with Ginsu's, has gone down, and the Moonblast damage has gone up, especially at 3-star. So give him a try, and you can actually be able to play him without necessarily having Ginsu's. And then Heimerdinger gets a bit of a nerf. The Shrink gets nerfed, which is part of a bigger change in the item system. The Mechano Burn gets nerfed. You can't have 3% true damage burn anymore. But the damage does go up to compensate a bit. So Heimer, still plug and play and still good, but maybe not the like extreme power spike that he was before. So again, various changes to existing champions. Should check those out. Maybe get Ashe reroll to work. I hear it's good. Bunch of other changes as well. So a lot of these are just balance adjustments, try to make things even better. I'm going to try to go over it pretty quick here, but Cho'Gath got buffed pretty hard, casts more often, hits harder, casts quicker as well, so hopefully Cho reroll can be a thing. To back that up, Malzahar has also been buffed a bit, shortening the delay between casting and dealing damage, so he misses a little less often. Kayle, the Shred got nerfed, part of that big Shred and Sunder change we'll talk about later. But gets some damage up to compensate. Orianna gets a mana buff, try to make her a little bit better. She's still a little rough, but, you know, she's Piltover. What are you going to do? Samira gets a small nerf to make up for Noxus being a little bit better. Galio gets some pretty big buffs. His channel duration, not quite as long, but that's going to let him cast more often. Helps with Winds of War and lets him heal more often. Jinx gets a very tiny buff here, nothing crazy. Talia gets a small buff. Lets her cast a little bit harder, works better. There's some good Talia comps you should try. Vi gets an interesting change. The Sunder gets nerfed, but the Spell Shield goes up and the AD goes up. So really good user of Titans now. If you want to try like Titans Vi, can do some good stuff. Warwick got a change that I think makes him a lot better. It used to be when he cast, the heal would double. Well, instead of the heal doubling, he actually just gains 100% attack speed, which is technically the same amount of healing, but you swipe more often, so should be a fun, like, I've seen some Warwick builds do very well in the early game, so I think Warwick can do well. Echo gets a bit of a nerf to make up for the fact that Rogue's pretty good now, and he was already pretty good. Jace got some buffs, helps with Gunner, helps make him not as reliant on everyone else. And now he self-buffs his own attack speed a lot more, and allies less, so you can play him as a carry now. Taric, the shield now only redirects 50% of the damage received by allies, not 100%. So you can actually kill things other than the Taric, which is kind of nice. Vel'Koz gets a small buff to make up for some changes across the system. Kai'Sa, very small mana buff to make up for things like the Shojin nerf. Nasus got a bunch of different changes here. Honestly, Nasus is probably one of the champions that changed the most on PvE, but attack speed up, armor and MR down, bonk AD up, so if you want to try to play him bonk, you can. He steals less AD though, steals less resistances, and at 3-star doesn't hit the entire enemy team all the time, so some interesting changes there. Sejuani gets buffed because she doesn't have as many connective pieces anymore with Freljord, so she gets more base HP. Shen gets a small nerf in the sense of the Ionia DR. It's very easy to play Shen with 3 Ionia, so that gets nerfed, and the mana goes up a bit. Aatrox, this looks like a nerf because the HP is going down 200, but now Aatrox benefits from his own Darken buff, which means he's actually starting at 1250, so it is meant to be a bit of a buff there. He also gets that Darken Omnivamp, and the Omnivamp got buffed, so that's cool, but he had to pay with it with a little armor and MR. Bel'Veth underperforming a bit, so Bel'Veth gets a buff, some extra damage and some move speed at 3-star to help her be quicker at 3-star. Cassante, benefiting from some Shurima changes, gets a bit of a nerf, less mana and less base armor and MR. He'll still be a terror, driving us all insane. Zaun Rise gets a Shred Sunder nerf, but spell damage buff to make up for it. And then Sion was just so much ball of health. The fact he gets 2 health bars. So base HP going down from 100 to 900, or from 1000 to 900. The armor and MR goes up 5 though to make up for it. And there you go. That's a bunch of changes to the existing stuff, but that's boring. Let's talk about new stuff. There are 6 new champions that aren't necessarily part of big verticals. We've got Nefiri, who's a really fun Darken Shurima challenger, which means, yes, there are now 2 Darken. We'll talk about that a little later. Fiora is now the 4-cost in Challenger, but works with Demacia. Pretty cool reprint from the old set, really fun. Silco is a cool AoE caster, makes for some interesting Zaun Sorcerer builds. Means you're going to have to play Sorcerer very differently. He's very different than the way Lux worked, so pretty interesting. Quinn, a Demacia Slayer, which means playing Kayle and Quinn, both Slayers, is now much easier, making Demacia pretty easy to tap into. So you can check that out. Good backline damage. That spell hits really hard. Mordekaiser, a Noxus Slayer, which means Noxus now has a 4-cost, which means you don't have to play Darius Cat reroll Noxus. You still can, but now there's other ways to play Noxus, which is pretty cool. And then Xayah, a new Ionia Vanquisher, not a Ginsu's user. Give her a bunch of strong AD items, can melt people, does some pretty good damage. Does really like her Ionia bonus, though, which is mana on hit, so that she can cast her spell pretty often. So, something to consider there. All right, moving on. So, one of the new class, Vanquisher. Vanquisher, pretty simple. It lets your spells crit, and you gain bonus critical strike chance and critical strike damage. So, yeah, these champions will crit a lot. Jhin, Nyla, Ashe, Xayah, and Darius. Neela is a really cool champion, by the way. 2 range, works really well with RFC. She'll basically swing and cleave and hit lots of people, so definitely check her out. All right, and then our new big origin here, Bilgewater. Bilgewater, basically, when you attack them, they get marked for a bit, and 1.5 seconds later, they get hit with a cannonball that does some flat damage, plus a percentage of the damage they took while they were marked. So if you unload a bunch of damage, that cannonball is going to hit really hard. Scales up pretty well. And so they're rounded out by Graves, Alawi, Twisted Fate, Misfortune, Nautilus, Neela, and Gangplank. So definitely a cool vertical. I think Bilgewater openers are very strong. It is getting a small nerf. If you have been playing a bunch of PvE, it got a small nerf from when it went live. But I think it wasn't a big enough nerf, so I think Bilgewater openers, definitely consider him. All right, Gangplank, our new 5-cost Reaver King. He's kind of cool in that you can put him in the back row, and he'll gain 3 range, and he'll shoot with his pistol and gain 3 mana. But if you put him in the front row, he gains 50 armor and MR, and his attacks deal true damage based on his AD, which works really well with Gunner. So you can put him in the back if you need, you can put him in the front if you need, doesn't matter. And then he summons his boat which is pretty cool. And the boat gives attack speed and immunity to crowd control for 3 seconds. Not as bursty as Ari, but that utility is very powerful if you need to be CC immune. So, pretty cool. Kind of the counter to Talia comps. Talia comps do not like facing a Galio. And then we have a new origin called Ixtal. Ixtal is a pretty cool one, but it's one of those ones that changes every game. We've got Milio, Kiana, and Nico, so it's only 3 champions. And so you can see here it's a 2-3-4. But every game it's different, and it'll put hexes on your board, which allow you to benefit champions stand. It doesn't have to be Ixtal champions. You can put any champion in there. For example, here you can see we've got Fire, and Fire will allow you to deal extra damage based on your spell. So you could put someone who's got a really good spell in there. I like Silco, because then you're just throwing like fiery poison, which is kind of cool. But yeah, and so there are actually total 6 Ixtal variants. We've got Fire, Wind, which is good for a ton of attack speed. You get attack speed every time you cast your spell. Stone, which is good for a tanky frontline. Ice, which is also good at, keeping someone alive and dropping aggro. It's like an Edge of Night. Pretty good. And it heals some of their health missing, so that was fun. Electric, which gives you some extra utility in CC. I had a really fun game where I played Rise, put him on an electric hex, and it turned his spell into an AoE stun. Pretty cool. And then Wood. Everyone loves Wood. You get extra health and 40 permanent health every turn. So really fun with Cho'Gath. But there's also other champions you can stack with this permanent health that can get really big. So yeah, definitely check that out. Every game, like I mentioned, you can see it at there's a little nub near the lock button, so you can see what it is before you start buying Ixtal units. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. And those are our new traits. Some other changes worth talking about. We've changed what it means to be a prismatic trait. If you hit a prismatic trait, you can expect to be extremely strong. These are traits that like should have a very high average finish. And as such, we've buffed a lot of them. So like 9 Bilgewater, 9 Demacia, 9 Ionia, 9 Noxus, 9 Shurima. These are meant to be like, oh my god, you hit this? That's crazy. 6 Piltover, similar. So these are prismatic. Everything else, though, has not prismatic anymore. We've left them at gold. So what you're going to see is things like 8 Bastion has went from prismatic to gold. And so that means it's not meant to be as powerful. And so this is our way of communicating to you that like, cool, 5 Strategist, it's a good trait, but it's not a prismatic game-winning trait, So just something to keep an eye on there. And you can see the full list of changes here. Bastion, Challenger, Invoker, Sorcerer, Void 8 are no longer prismatic. 6 Gunner, 6 Vanquisher, 6 Zaun, 5 Strategist, 4 Ixtal, 4 Targon, and 3 Freljord. Those are just gold now. One other thing we did is that we made it so if you have extra critical strike chance past 100%, that is now better. That'll give you 80% critical strike damage instead of 50%. So if you're a Vanquisher and you're stuck with an extra crit item, you won't be missing out on as many potential stats. So there you go. All right, on the trait side, I'll try to run through these quick here. Bastion got nerfed from what it is on the first half of the set, mostly because Sunder and Shred have gone down. So these also went down. 8 Bastion, still good, but again, you'll see these numbers are lower. There's also another Bastion, so it's easier to hit. That also required a bit of a nerf. Bruiser actually went up. Bruiser 4 and 6 have been buffed, so Bruiser frontline should hopefully be more stable. Demacia got 2 big changes. The first one is that now the Radiant item you get is not random. It's not necessarily best in slot, but it's not random. You know every time if Kale is one of your elites, Kale will get a Giant Slayer. If Poppy is one of your elites, Poppy will get a Gargoyle Stoneplate. And so you can plan around that, which is good because no one really liked losing fights based off the randomness of their elite item. However, to compensate for that reliability, we did have to nerf it, so 7 is back down to 3 elites. Their armor and MR also went down because of the Shred and Sunder nerfs. But yeah, otherwise, should be still pretty good. We've seen Demacia do pretty well. And again, now they can play around Fiora, pretty good. Freljord, a lot harder to hit now because there's only 2 of them. If you have that 2-piece, you're going to get that 30% Sunder and Shred. This is the same as Last Whisper now, so it's a full replacement for like Last Whisper. If you can get 3, you're going to get the stun as well. So Freljord, a lot harder to connect into, but if you can, it's worth it. Darken, as I mentioned, has been changed. There are now 2 Darken, each with their own different weapon. And you can have both weapons. You can't have multiple, like you can't run 2 Aatroxes or anything like that. But if you have both, those weapon powers are 50% stronger. So kind of cool. Juggernaut. Juggernaut got a bit of a nerf at 4 and 6 to make up for the fact it has much better champions. Warwick got buffed. Nautilus is great CC for your front line. Nasus can now play around 2 Shurima. So Juggernaut ended up a lot better, and so it got a small nerf as we ended up at the back half of the PBE. Gunner also got a very small nerf at 4. The jump from 2 to 4 Gunner was just a little too good, so had to nerf that. Invoker, fun new thing for Invoker. So Invoker 6 got a small nerf, but the bigger thing is now there is an Invoker 8. So if you want to go Invoker 8, it's going to be even more mana regen and an additional 30 ability power to everyone. So 8 Invoker, something you can try. Ionia, nothing crazy here other than 9 Ionia got buffed. It now gives 4 Enlightened instead of 3, and the bonus is up to 380%. So again, 9 Ionia should feel like a very, very strong thing to hit. Noxus. Noxus got some adjustments here. For those of you that played PBE, 7 went down even further, but now you can play at 3, 5, 7, 9. It's a very flexible trait now. Honestly, probably one of the easier to play traits, because you can play 3, you can play 5, you can play 7, you can play reroll, you can play typical fast 8 into Mordekaiser. Bunch of cool ways to play this trait. I really enjoy this trait now. Rogue. Rogue is finally playable. We promise. It's actually a good trait now. You can play 2. It will reliably work. You can play 4. The 4-piece now, the one thing to note, though, is it's not a % of the enemy's health. It's a % of the damage you do that procs it. So if you do a big spell, you'll get a big bleed. If you just do some basic auto attacks, you don't get a big bleed. So it's basically a powerful damage amp, which is kind of nice. But it works now on basically any attack. So definitely check out Rogue. Shurima is now a 2-4-6-9, very flexible now. You know, you can play just like Nasus and Azir and call it a day, and that's 2. You can play 4, and at 6, they'll all ascend. And if you can somehow get to 9, 9 will be one of those big prismatic win conditions. Slayer is a little harder to play this time, but there are a lot more Slayers plus an emblem. You can go 2-4-6. Otherwise, it's basically the same trait, but instead of it being a 2-3-4-5-6, it's now just a 2-4-6. But the jumps are a bit better, so hopefully those should feel rewarding. Sorcerer, like I said, does play a bit different now without Lux. As such, it has been buffed a bit. The ability power you get here is actually higher. So definitely if you can get 8 Sorcerer, you're getting 135 ability power. 6 Sorcerer is 90, so pretty good. Zaun's another one that changed quite a bit here. So there are less Zaun units now, and so you can see here now Zaun is a 2-4-6. At 4, though, the jump from 2 to 4 was never that great in the first half of the set. Now it is, because now not only do you get 2 chem mods, but they'll actually overcharge. So you can get overcharge without any sort of lucky emblems or anything. If you manage to get 2 emblems and get to 6 Zaun, you're going to get 5 overcharged mods. So 6 Zaun should be very powerful. Not quite a prismatic, but again, very strong. Speaking of the mods, we did rework them to try to be better on more champions. So Adaptive Implant, we also had to nerf some of them because they are a bit more accessible. So like Adaptive Implant, the overcharge got nerfed a bit. Hextech Exoskeleton makes you just tankier and deal more damage. Also restores some HP. If you overcharge it, you're immune to CC, which very powerful. Robotic Arm. Robotic Arm, your attacks and abilities deal 25% additional damage as true damage. Now, there's a note here. I believe in-game in the text it says attack damage. That is wrong. I promise you. It is all damage gets amplified. So you can put this on, you know, a Silco. You can put this on an AP user. It is all damage gets increased 25%. So something to keep in mind. We'll fix that for the next patch. Shimmer Injector, more attack speed, but less overcharge heal. Unstable Chem Tank gets nerfed. We don't need Jarvans exploding everywhere. Jarvans can still explode everywhere, just for less, with how easy it is to get now. And then Virulent Bioware also gets a bit of a nerf. Not a nerf, excuse me, a rework, where now it works anytime you cast your spell, your next attacks and damage will cause them to take more damage. So this means someone like Warwick can even take advantage of it. So this should be usable on a lot more champions. So, yeah. All right, now our big system change. Item changes. So the big thing to note here is we've moved all items into core items. Core items are defined as something that makes the person wearing them stronger. So this means things like Zephyr and Zeke's, which didn't really do that. They're gone for now. They're moved aside. And because of that, we've got 6 new core items here. Crown Guard, which is good on an AP frontliner, gives them a strong shield, and when it breaks, gives them some AP. Night Harvester, which did get a bit of a nerf right at the end here, but gives you some AD AP. It's a good generic damage item. It gives you 12% bonus damage. When you fall below 60% health, that doubles to 25% for the rest of combat. So if you're someone that like vamps up like a Darius, this is a great item for you. Even Shroud, this is basically the Ionic Spark of physical damage. 30% Sunder to all enemies within 2 hexes, and then gain 20 armor and MR for the first 10 seconds of combat. Now, thing to note while we're here is that all Sunder and Shred from items has been reduced from 50% to 30%. It was just too necessary. If you didn't have it, you were screwed. So we're going to be balancing around that 30% number now, so that if you don't have it, you can actually still win fights. Gnasher's Tooth. After casting an ability, gain 40% attack damage, or excuse me, attack speed for 5 seconds. Also comes with 30 AP. Great on a champion like Azir. One thing to note though is this does not stack. Like you get 40% attack speed. That's it. So it's either on or off. So does not stack. It's not bound to low mana users. If anything, it's actually good on a high mana user to get them attacked again. So consider that. Steric's Gauge, really good for AD frontliners. When you go to 60% health, gain 20% max health and 35% attacks damage. Kind of fun on Cho'Gath and Rek'Sai and things like that. Yep. And then Adaptive Helm. This one's a cool one. If you put it on a champion in the front 2 rows, they gain 35 armor and MR, which is a lot of tankiness. It's not quite Gargoyle. It's like Gargoyle with almost 2 targets on them, so pretty good. If you put it on somebody in the back 2 rows, 20 ability power and 10 mana every 3 seconds. So kind of comparable to Shojin. And so it's kind of nice. It's like a bit more of a flexible Shojin, right? It's like you can move it, you can do whatever with it. Pretty flexible item. So we also did some other item rebalancing. I'll try to go through this fast. Archangels, less starting mana, but a little more AP per 5 seconds. Bramble Vest, less hard counter against crit. So its critical strike reduction goes down to 50%. Chalice is now a support item, which we'll talk about in a minute. Dragon's Claw, a little less MR. Again, this is to make up for the Shred nerf. Gargoyle Stoneplate, a little less base armor and MR. Same thing, Shred and Sunder. Guardbreaker now gives 25% attack speed, but no AD. Should make it more flexible, and the AP users will like it a bit more. Ionic Spark, Shred goes down, but MR and AP go up. Last Whisper, Sunder goes down, but the AD and attack speed go up. Attack speed goes up quite a bit, so don't sleep on Last Whisper. Still a good item. Locket is now a support item. Protector's Vow, a little less armor and MR. Rapid Fire Cannon. This is another big one that changed. The attack speed's gone down to 33%, but now deal 12% bonus damage. So now casters should actually be pretty happy with this. I know Mordekaiser uses it very well now, but you should be happier to put this on a bunch more people. Redemption is now just AoE damage has been, instead of it reducing AoE damage, it's now just 10% damage reduction. So should be a good change there. Static Shiv, less Shred, more attack speed, more AP. Shojin, less starting mana, but a bit of AD to make you not feel as bad if you want to put this on like an Aphelios or something. Titan's Resolve, a little less armor and MR. Zeke's, Zephyr, and Zerat are now support items. So there you go. And of course, these items have Radiant versions. Not going to go over these, but the general idea here is the Radiant versions are more powerful versions of the items. You can see bigger shields, more AP, more percent damage, more attack speed. Probably the more interesting one is the Adaptive Helm Radiant version, where you gain 2 effects. My cat is sneezing. Sorry about that. That is quite the sneeze fit. Okay. So yeah, you get both. Sorry about that. You get both of the effects no matter what position you're in. So kind of an interesting item. And then we made a bunch of Radiant balance as well to try to get these in a better spot. Bramble Vest armor actually goes up, but the critical strike reduction goes down. Dragon Claw MR goes down. Edge of Night is a big one. This now only triggers once. But now after triggering, you heal to full, and you gain more attack speed. So it's not meant to be saving you twice, but it meant to save you once really well. Gargoyle Stoneplate gets nerfed at both the base and resist per target. Guard Breaker gets changed to match its normal one. Ionic Spark, less shred, but more MR, AP, and healing regen. Last Whisper, less Sunder, more AD and attack speed. Protector's Vow, less armor and MR on proc. And again, a lot of this is just balancing around the shred and Sunder change. Rapid Fire Cannon now matches 70% attack speed, 20% damage. Redemption, same thing. Hurricane gets a 5% AD buff. Static Shiv, less shred, more attack speed, AP, and zap damage. Shojin, a little more AD, and Titans, more armor and MR. So again, a lot of changes that match their base there. All right, so we have core items, we have radiant items. Next is artifacts. You might know these as Ornn items, Shimmer Scale items, things like that. But artifacts are special items that, you don't build, you just get, but they always make the wearer stronger as well. So if you see something that's going to make you stronger, it's an artifact. So a couple changes here. First off, we'll never try to give you gold generating items on stage 4 and beyond. They've lost most of their value at that point. We won't show them there. Eternal Winter, a little less armor, shred and sunder. So Goldmancer's Staff now. Goldmancer's Staff is an example where it used to be a Shimmer Scale item. Now it's an artifact. It gives you a little bit more AP, less from gold, so you don't need to hold 60 gold. But it's an artifact, so you can see this from Portable Forge now. Hull Crusher, a little less armor and MR. Mogul's Mail is now an artifact, because again, it makes the wearer stronger. Muramana has some AP now, so it doesn't feel as bad on like a sorcerer. Should be good there. Obsidian Cleaver is no longer an artifact, it's a support item. Randuin Sanctum is now a support item. Trickster's Glass, we made the clone transparent, so people don't go, oh my god, you've got 6 of that champion. And Zonya's Paradox got a 5 AP buff. Cool. Sorry, my cat's in here. You want to say hi, Shishomero? No? Okay, let's keep going. Support items. So support items are our new category here, and this is a category of item that does not make the wearer stronger, but makes the team stronger in some way. So if you were wearing this item, you can expect that it is making the team stronger, not the wearer. There's a couple new ones, and you'll see some old familiar faces. So notice they all give you 250 HP, so that's the standard, because again, you're focused on the benefit. So we've got a new one, Aegis of the Legion, which shoots like a shroud backwards and empowers everyone it hits for a bit. Banshee's Veil, which gives you and the 2 people next to you Quicksilver, which is kind of cool. Shroud does its thing, but now also gives the team 60 health. Obsidian Cleaver, which grants that shred and sunder, but also gives your team 10 AD and AP. Locket. Locket's got a cool rework here, where now it gives a health shield, but also some armor and MR, which means you can actually use it on things like bruisers and not feel bad. Needlessly Big Gem, used to be a Shimmer Scale item, is now a support item. Same thing. Randuin's Omen gives that team armor and MR. Chalice. Big change for Chalice here is it now affects 5 people instead of 3. So same range as Locket, giving 18 ability power and 10 starting mana. So kind of cool. Virtue of the Martyr is a new one that gives your team health regen, and if it dies, that health regen doubles for 10 seconds. Zeke's, like Chalice, is now 5 rows. Zerat Portal, kind of like its old Radiant version, where it'll summon a big minion that forces enemies to attack it. And then Zephyr is still around, does its same thing, and gives your team 8% attack speed. So if you get support items, you can look forward to these. They've got a unique border you can see here. And so now we can make support items as needed. There's also some new portals for our new regions. Bilgewater got 3 new portals. Rat Town, which starts giving you lucky shops that give you stuff based around what you're playing. Finn's Market, which can give you, at random times throughout the game, you'll get either a completed item, an artifact, a support item, or a radiant item. Pretty cool. Everyone gets the same thing. It's a choice, so you'll get to choose, but yep. And then Slaughter Docks, which gives you extra rerolls at the start of each stage. I love this one with Caitlyn personally, but or Lee Sin even. Yeah. There's a new Freljord one that says gain a component anvil on 2/3 and a support anvil on 3/3. So if you want to try the support items, go to Valor's Hollow. And then Ixtal has 3 new ones. Serpentine River is one of my favorite. The stage 2 and 4 carousels are replaced by voting rounds. Everyone gets a component anvil and the winning reward. Ishikon, Every time a player star up 20 units, all players gain increasingly valuable loot. This is a low impact one because it's all players starring up units together. So whenever it procs, everyone gets it, unlike the Thresh Sanctum one. So, and then Cardinal Arcology, which is you will always be offered silver, gold, and prismatic augment in that order. So 7 new portals to play with. A few new augments as well. Stationary support 1, 2, and 3, which basically gives you a training dummy with some of those support items. Pretty cool. The silver gives it to you in 8 turns. The gold gives you that 1 support item. And the prismatic gives you 2 random support items that has been nerfed from 3. There's a new augment called Support Cache, which basically gives you 1 of 4 support items. I think we could have called it Supportable Forge. That's the best name I've heard for it. Each of the traits has their new augment, Rising Infamy, which gives you a chest based on how many cannon barrages you fired, and that improves over time. Stolen Vitality, which has been nerfed, gives your Vanquishers, every time they crit, they heal an ally with the most missing health. And Rejuvenating Flames, which has also been nerfed, gives your allies a % health regen every 5 seconds, and if they started in an Elemental Hex, that is doubled. So, and then we have the usual Bilgewater Crest, Bilgewater Crown, Ixtal Heart, Ixtal Soul, Vanquisher Heart, Crest, Crown, all the usuals. And then on the augment side, a bunch of balance adjustments, but generally we tried to lower the power of a lot of the combat augments a little bit. They were kind of dominating. So I'm going to go fast here, but Shadow Isles, Deadeye, Yordle related augments have all been removed. Cybernetic Bulk and Leech have been nerfed. Healing Orbs has been nerfed. Iron Assets has been buffed 2 gold. Social Distancing got lower AD and AP. Tiny Power slight nerfed. Well-Earned Comforts 1, this is the Ezreal one, has been buffed a bit. Seeing Double 1 has been replaced with Jobs Done, so just different augment there. Unified Resistance, bit of a nerf. Okay, on the gold side, holy moly, I'll try to go through these quick. Cut Above, no longer offered on 3-2, bit of a nerf. Adrenaline Rush, bit of a nerf. All That Shimmers, no longer there anymore because now they're just artifacts. Chemtech Enhancement actually got buffed now that Zaun's harder to play. Gives 250 HP to neighbors. I think this augment's great now. Contagion, bit of a nerf. Cybernetic Bulk and Leech nerf. Demon Flare nerfed because it works really well with New Swain. New Swain is very good with this. It's like, don't sleep on Demon Flare. Escort Quest no longer offered on 3-2. Gargantuan Resolve buffed. So if you want to run double Titans champions, go for it. It's pretty fun. Idealism, slight nerf. Infusion, slight nerf. Know Your Enemy, slight nerf. Magic Wand, slight nerf. Medium Forge, very slight nerf. Ravenous Hunter, max stacks up by 5, so Warwick should be good again. Riftwalk, slight buffed. Return on Investment, slight buff. Parting Gifts, now mutually exclusive with Endless Hordes. That caused a lot of problems. Seeing Double 2 is now replaced with Teaming Up 2. Gain 1 random support item and 5 gold. Sentinel Spirit, that's the Ionia one, slight nerf. Shrima's Legacy, slight nerf. Sleight of Hand has been changed. This is the Lots of Thieves Gloves one. Now gives HP and attack speed, so it should be useful on tanks and stuff as well. Social Distancing, slight nerf. Stable Evolution, 1 less unit. Stellacorn's Blessing, nerf. Tactical Superiority, slight nerf. Three's a Crowd, slight nerf. Total Domination, nerf. 2 Healthy, nerf. And again, you can see we're just lowering the power of these augments here. Unified Resistance, nerf. What doesn't kill you buff, only 4 losses per item now. I like this augment now. You have my sword nerf. You have my bow nerf. And Winds of War has been reworked. Should be a lot better. It's now, every time he casts his ability, it gets larger and larger and larger. So eventually he hits the whole board, which is kind of cool. On the Prismatic side, this is a big one. Blinding Speed, Unleashed Arcana, Impenetrable Bulwark, and Overwhelming Force all now give an extra corresponding component. I think this makes these augments very good now. Because you're basically getting 5 components of value instead of 4. So don't sleep on those. Built Different, slight nerf. Buried Treasures 3, buff to 6 components. So Ezreal gets a bit of a buff there. Cybernetic Leech, nerf. Final Reserves got a rework. A lot of people were playing this in a way we didn't intend, which was they would basically sell their entire board, open fort, wait till it procced, and do a crazy level 9 transition, which is not what we wanted. So instead, it's now going to be gain XP, then set your gold to, I believe it's actually 66 now. These notes might be wrong. But you can't have more than that gold. And so if you have more than that gold, you're just going to be wasting it. So you should be playing it normally and then proc it on the last turn. So a bit of a nerf there. Freljord Soul now grants Ashen a redemption instead of a Lysandra that doesn't exist. Hedge Fund slight buff. Infernal Contract slight nerf. Seeing Double 3 is now Teaming Up 3. Gain 2 random support items and 3 gold. Social Distancing nerf. Tiny Power nerf. Void Crown now grants an adaptive helm since the Rot Portal is not a thing anymore. Challenger Crown grants a Nefiri. Demacia Crown grants a Quinn. Freljord Soul grants an Ashen redemption. I already said that. Don't know why I said that twice. Rogue Crown and Heart grant Kiana. Shurima Crown grants Nefiri. Slayer Crest and Heart grant a Kiana. Slayer Crown grants a Quinn and a Night Harvester. Strategist Soul grants a Night Harvester, and Void Crown. I said those twice. So, and that's it. There you go. This says have fun testing, but we're done testing. It's time to play. The patch is out. Go play the patch. Go have fun. We hope you enjoy our final mid set. We hope we go out with a bang. There's also a cool article you can read about mid sets and why they went away and what we're doing now. So, and how we learned from them. But yeah, that's gonna do it. So, enjoy the mid set. Enjoy the patch. We'll see ya. Have fun, and can't wait to show you what's next. So, that's gonna do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.